Here's the question I've been sitting with all week. If AI agents are about to outnumber humans by a factor of 100 to 1, and every single one of them needs to make payments, settle transactions, and move value across borders in milliseconds, what do they use? They can't open a bank account. They can't swipe a credit card. They can't wait 3 to 5 business days for a wire to clear. So what do they use? Mainstream finance hasn't answered that question. The major networks haven't answered it either. But the architects of the next financial system, they answered it a long time ago. And right now, they're building the rails while everyone else is still arguing about price targets. What I'm about to show you is not being discussed the way it should be. Let's pull back the curtain. Welcome back. For those new here, this channel doesn't do hype. We don't celebrate green candles or panic at red ones. What we do is follow the structural signals that the crowd consistently misses. Today, we're going inside the convergence of artificial intelligence and blockchain infrastructure. Specifically, what it means for the XRP ledger and why the institutions quietly positioning around it right now are not guessing. They're executing. Let's get into it. Let's start with the hard truth that almost nobody is framing correctly. Most people in this space are still looking at XRP through the lens of 2017. Price speculation, exchange volume, bull cycle timing, and I understand why. It's the lens the media handed them. But here's what they are fundamentally missing. XRP was never designed to serve human trading psychology. It was designed to serve institutional-grade value transfer. And now, for the first time in history, a new class of actors has emerged that matches that design requirement perfectly. Think about what an AI agent actually needs to function in an economy. It needs to move value at any hour of the day or night. No human is sitting there approving transactions. It needs fees so low they don't eat into micropayment economics. We're talking fractions of a cent per transaction. It needs finality in seconds, not hours, because an AI agent making 10,000 micro decisions per day cannot wait for blockchain confirmation windows that stretch into minutes. And it needs a network that any developer can plug into without building custom infrastructure from scratch. Now ask yourself, which ledger was purpose-built with exactly those specifications? 3 to 5 second settlement. Transaction fees measured in drops. That's 1/1,000,000th of an XRP. A native decentralized exchange and automated market maker built directly into the protocol. No middleman, no gas wars, no congestion spikes. The XRP ledger wasn't ahead of its time in some abstract sense. It was literally engineered for a use case that didn't have a name yet when it was built. That use case now has a name, and it's called the agentic economy. David Schwartz and the core development team were building infrastructure for a world of non-human transactors years before the term AI agent entered the mainstream conversation. That's not a coincidence. That's architecture. Let's do the math that the crowd is ignoring. The CZ, the co-founder of Binance, made a statement recently that I want you to sit with. He said AI agents could push global crypto volumes into the $400 trillion per year range. Not 400 billion, 400 trillion. That's because AI agents will make, quote, 1,000,000 times more payments than humans. Let me put that in context. The current global cross-border payment market moves approximately $150 trillion per year. The Forex market alone clears 7.5 trillion every single day. Those are the numbers built on legacy rails, human speed rails. Now imagine a world, and Circle's co-founder has publicly stated this timeline, where literally billions of AI agents are conducting economic activity continuously. Not 8 hours a day, not 5 days a week, continuously, every second, every microtransaction, every API call that costs money, every autonomous treasury rebalancing, every AI agent bidding a service, paying a fee, settling a contract. At that transaction velocity, even a fraction of 1% of global volume becomes a number that's almost incomprehensible when you apply it to a fixed supply asset. Here's the mechanics that matter. XRP has a hard cap, 100 billion tokens, total ever. Approximately 55 to 57 billion are in circulation right now. And here's what the mathematical reality of high-volume agentic usage actually means. At higher transaction volumes, at higher utility, the demand side of this equation does not grow linearly. It accelerates, because the more agents rely on the ledger, the more the bridge currency at the center of those transactions is required as collateral, as working capital, as liquidity buffer. Think about that math. Fixed supply, accelerating demand from a category of user, AI agents, that the current circulating supply was never priced to accommodate. This isn't a prediction. It's a requirement of the system that is currently being built. Now let's look at what the smart money is actually doing, because this is where the signal gets loud. Ripple just co-led a strategic investment in a company called T54, and I want you to pay close attention to who else was in that round. Franklin Templeton, one of the oldest and most conservative asset managers in the world. Not a crypto-native fund, not a speculative venture firm. Franklin Templeton, the same institution that was among the first traditional asset managers to launch a tokenized money market fund on a public blockchain. They don't make bets, they position. T54's mission is to be the trust layer for the agentic economy. Every AI agent verified, every transaction assessed for risk, every outcome accountable before money moves. They're describing it as the compliance and identity layer that makes autonomous financial activity possible at scale. And they chose to build this on the XRP ledger. Ask yourself a brutal question. Does a firm like Franklin Templeton move capital without absolute institutional certainty about the infrastructure they're backing? No, they don't gamble. They execute after the legal and technical groundwork has already been laid. And it doesn't stop there. Evernorth, operating on the XRP ledger, has announced integration of T54's infrastructure to power their autonomous treasury operations. We're talking about AI-powered treasury management with built-in verification, risk assessment, and compliance. Not in a white paper, in production. Meanwhile, Ripple continues to deepen its G-Treasury partnership, targeting the 27 trillion locked-in Nostro and Vostro accounts that currently sits idle in correspondent banking. Western Union's VP of Digital Assets has publicly stated that stablecoins riding on top of global banking rails are not a theoretical future. They are the future of how payments move globally. While retail investors are watching price charts and debating support levels, the custodians, the treasury managers, and the sovereign-grade institutions are quietly wiring the financial backbone of the agentic economy. And the XRP ledger is at the center of it. So when does this shift from infrastructure build to market recognition? Several convergence points are aligning simultaneously, and timing matters here. First, regulatory clarity in the United States. The Digital Asset Clarity Act and ongoing SEC posture shifts are removing the primary institutional barrier that kept major capital on the sidelines. Once the legal classification question is definitively resolved, the wait-and-see money becomes all-in money. That's not FOMO. That's compliance departments getting green lights. Second, the agentic deployment curve. The Circle co-founder specifically cited a 3 to 5 year window to billions of AI agents in active economic deployment. We are in year 1 of that curve right now. The infrastructure being built today, T54, G-Treasury, Evernorth, is positioning for the inflection point, not the end point. Third, stablecoin legislation. When federal stablecoin frameworks are cemented, the on-ramps for AI agent wallets holding stablecoins on the XRP ledger become regulated, institutional-grade infrastructure. That's not a small unlock. That's the gate opening for every major financial institution that has been waiting for legal cover to deploy. When the final switch is flipped on regulatory clarity, the risk premium currently embedded in XRP's price doesn't compress slowly. It collapses. And the capital that priced in that uncertainty reprices to reflect a ledger that is now the operating layer of a $1 trillion agentic economy. Here's something the mathematical models consistently underestimate. We are moving from an era of supply abundance to an era of structural scarcity. And most retail participants have not processed what that actually means. XRP's on-exchange reserves have been trending toward multi-year lows. Tokens that move into institutional cold storage, corporate treasuries, custodial vaults, multi-sig arrangements under T54's trust layer do not come back to market for a 10% return. They are deployed as liquidity infrastructure. They are locked into automated market maker pools. They are held as working capital for ODL corridors processing millions of microtransactions. Once a token enters that stack, it is functionally removed from retail price discovery. And here's the second layer of scarcity that almost nobody is modeling. AI agents transacting in drops, 1/1,000,000th of an XRP per operation, at billions of transactions per day, create a demand profile that is structurally different from human trading. Humans sell when they profit. AI agents hold because holding is the operational requirement. The crowd is staring at current prices and debating entry points. The architects are building systems where the question won't be when to buy. It'll be whether there's enough liquid supply left to buy at all. The window between now and mass agentic deployment is finite. It is measurable, and it is closing. I know what some of you are thinking right now. You've been patient. You've watched the consolidation. You've endured the cycles, the headlines, the FUD. And there are days when patient conviction feels indistinguishable from being wrong. I want to address that directly. Being early in infrastructure plays feels exactly like being wrong, right up until the moment that the infrastructure goes live and the market reprices overnight. The people who held railroad stocks through the 1870s build-out didn't see their thesis vindicated during the construction phase. They saw it vindicated the moment commerce ran on those rails at scale. We are in the construction phase of the agentic financial system. The red candles during this phase are not signals of failure. They are the silence of a predator waiting to strike, capital accumulating beneath the surface while the majority's attention is elsewhere. The question is not whether this infrastructure gets used. The question is who is still holding when AI agents become the dominant transaction class on the XRP ledger, and the market has to reprice to reflect that reality. Noise is everywhere. The signal is clear for those who are actually looking. Let me bring it back to the core thesis. AI agents need payment rails. They cannot use legacy banking. They will use crypto. The XRP ledger, with its sub-second finality, micro-fee architecture, and native liquidity infrastructure, is positioned as the operating layer for the agentic economy. Franklin Templeton, Circle, Western Union, Ripple, and T54 are not speculating on this future. They are building it right now. You don't have to trade this. You don't have to time it perfectly. The insight that Ralph Paul articulated clearly applies here. You can participate in an economy you are not actively building simply by holding a stake in the network that runs it. That's the position. That's the thesis. That's the structure. If you made it this far, you are not part of the crowd. You are part of the informed. Drop agents in the comments if this hit different for you today. Stay patient. Stay rational. And as always, we don't wait for the future. We plan for it.